Now we're going to talk about data types and operators, a very important but similar concept to talk about. Now, we've created our variables and constants before, and we've been giving them different values, sometimes text, sometimes numbers. But it's better for us to say at the start what kind of value, if we know ahead of time, we're going to put into that variable or constants. So up until now, our data type was implied but not defined. So if we said that my name is Tristan, we knew that Tristan is a bit of text and we were storing text. If we put in my age, which isn't 22, we knew that that's a number rather than a bit of text. So what we can add is slightly changing our syntax from when we defined our variable, var first name equals Tristan. If we add in a colon after that variable name, so var first name colon, and then a data type, which we'll go through in a second, we can actually say, well, this first name is always going to be text. After all, my first name's not going to be 4976, unless we end up in some sort of apocalyptic wasteland. So when we create it, we add in the data type as well. So what are those data types? Well, we have a list here. These are 4 common data types that we quite often see when building our own programs. We have what's called an integer, which can be thought of as a whole number, either positive or negative. So that might be 4, 8, 16, negative 32, and the lucky final lotto number is 16. We might also have something called a double. So a double is simply thought of as a decimal number. Not looking at base 10 or base 3, we're all talking about base 10 at the moment, but a decimal number is in 3.4, 4.6, 5.2, 19.7. A lot of the time we want to measure things to the nearest, well, to a certain amount of decimal places rather than just whole numbers. Because the computer stores decimal numbers and whole numbers differently, it's better to think about what kind of number we'll be using when we're defining our variable. We also have something called a boolean. Now, a boolean is simply a true or false value. Am I here talking to you today? That is true. Am I here talking to you tomorrow? Well, we're yet to find out. So if we want to store a true or false value in our program, we use a boolean. What we commonly use to store text is a string, so a string of text. So if we want to store a phrase or a bit of text, hi, my name is Tristan, or just my name, Tristan, or the name of the university, Curtin University, we use what's called a string, because that allows us to store a bit of text. Of course, when we go more into detail, we'll be seeing that we can do certain mathematical things with numbers. We obviously can't do those with text. We can't add 2 bits of text together. Well, not really at least. So here are a few more examples of using data types. So we've got a greeting here, which we've set as a string, so we're going to expect that to be some text. And as we can see here, glad you are here is what we're going to store in our variable called greeting. In the age, which is getting closer, we're storing an integer for 27. For the fastest time, of course, if we're measuring maybe an athletics race or a swimming race or some other sort of competition, we want to know very, very close to a very, very large amount of decimal places how long it took someone to complete something. Of course, the difference between many world records is less than a second. So we use a double, or as you remember, a decimal number, to store that value so we can add that extra precision. We also then have our boolean. So var light is on. Is the light on? The lights are definitely on. If they were off, then that would be false rather than true. So as I briefly mentioned a couple of minutes ago, we also have the ability to do certain mathematical operations with our variables. And to do that, we need to learn about something called operators. Now, we've already seen an operator which looks a lot like an equal sign. Well, that's because it is an equal sign. But that equal sign has a specific meaning when we define our variables or our constants. So that is what's called the assignment operator, because on the left-hand side of the equal sign, we've said we are going to create a variable or a constant and give it a certain name. On the right-hand side of the equal sign, we're saying this is the value we're putting in it. We're assigning a value to a variable or a constant. But we also have a whole bunch of other different operators we can use to do different mathematical functions. Now, if we know the basics of maths, we have a lot of different things we can do, but some common things in maths, we might want to add numbers together, subtract numbers, divide numbers, and multiply numbers. So we're able to do that using different operators if we have multiple variables. So perhaps if we've got 2 different numbers, say 10 and 2, we can add them together. We can, as we can see here, we've got 25 and 30. When we add them together, we get 55. We have a subtraction operator, so 22 take 13. We have multiplication. 4 sevens are 28s if we remember our times tables. We also have division. 12 divided by 4 is 3. One that you might not have seen before is the remainder operator, or modulo as it is also known. With our remainder operator, for example, 12 remainder 5 looks at what happens when we divide 12 by 5. Of course, 5 goes into 12 twice, which only gets us to 10. To get to 12, we have that remainder of 2. So our remainder operator, or modulo operator, says, what is the result of doing this division if we do it as a sort of old-fashioned longhand division? What is the remainder from doing that operation, rather than dividing, say, 12 by 5 and ending up with 2 point whatever.